Hello and welcome back to the Pod of Champions. Today we are joined by myself and Moyes and special guest Billy Minshall.
Yep.
Hi.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's all right. So Billy does work for Toffee TV.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I've been doing it for nearly a year now, and it's mainly just a lot of editing, really. They're a YouTube channel, actually the biggest Everton fan channel in the world.
He's flexing on us already.
Yeah, and it's mainly just editing and helping out with the videos, doing some blogs and stuff. But yeah, it's been really good.
That's good. So today we're going to do our first, what I'd like to call club dive, where we go in depth with the club. So obviously Billy working at Toffee TV is an Everton fan, so that's the club we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be going over recent managers in their history, talking about their spending on transfers as well, going into a lot of detail maybe about Ancelotti as well. I know it's something that you're quite keen to go into.
Yeah. Carlo Fantastico.
So yeah, that's kind of where we're going to take this. So starting off really, life of Moyes.
Yeah. Well, that was sort of my era growing up, I guess, and it was just a good side, lots of stability and consistency, which hasn't been there recently. But there was never really much money to spend on transfers, but it always recruited well, and always sort of finished outside, the top 4 or 5. And it was just a good, hard-working side, and I think that's part of what attracted me to Everton, as well as my dad telling me, was just
You will support Everton.
yeah, there's sort of that sort of underdog mentality and like good fans, and yeah.
For the Moyes era, what was his best years?
Well, it was pretty solid. He was there for about 10 years, and although he's struggled to begin with, the rest of the years were all pretty consistently good. There was a Champions League qualification around 2004. Yeah, there wasn't really standout years. It was more just consistent. You know what you're going to get every year, which I say hasn't really been there recently.
It's quite interesting because I always thought of, growing up myself, obviously as a Liverpool fan, I feel like the rivalry between the two clubs, not that it's not there now, but I feel like obviously we've kind of got to that next level where I feel like under Moyes, like you said, you were that stable club, whereas now it's almost like you don't really know what's going to happen year on year. Well, not in recent seasons at least anyway.
No.
And it's quite interesting considering the spending power you've had in recent seasons, and it's been unstable compared to Moyes back in the day, like you said, didn't have this big budget of other teams, but he still managed to get a lot out of his players.
Yeah, I think that just shows what a good job he did, because he gets a lot of stick nowadays, and people don't think he's very good, because he hasn't done very well since leaving Everton. But at Everton, he did do a very good job, and like nowadays, you go into every season, you're not quite convinced that it's going to be like the good parts from the previous one are going to carry on, and that has been the case. And the more that happens, the more you think it's going to happen. But under Moyes, it was pretty solid, really.
So when he got picked up by United, did you think it was a warranted move for him? He'd done well enough for you?
Yeah, I didn't have any bad feelings towards him. It's obviously a much bigger job and a better opportunity, and he did really well for the club, so it's sort of fair enough, really. I don't have any bad words to say about him, really. It's fair enough, I think.
And how did you think he was going to get on at United? Do you think he was treated a bit unfairly? Should have been given more time?
Yeah, I think because Ferguson did so well for so long, whoever took over, it was going to be a really difficult job. And because he didn't do that well, I think there was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction where they weren't really used to doing as badly as that, and they just sort of panicked and wanted him out. But if you look at how they performed, it's not really been that much different since then under Van Gaal, and I think Mourinho was a bit better than under Ole, obviously. So yeah, I think it was a bit harsh, because also he was Ferguson's pick to be the manager, so I think they should have given him more time.
Yeah, I think
How
it's
long was he in at United?
It was less than a season.
Yeah, it was.
Because didn't they give him a 5-6 year contract?
It was a very long contract that they gave him. It was it 8 seasons? It was 7, 8, yeah. Something along those lines anyway.
Yeah, as you said, they just panicked and he just was gone.
Yeah, again, I think it's something we spoke about last week. Fan expectations being too high, and I think no fan expectations. I guess coming off of the back of the success he'd been through with United, no fan base would probably have the expectations they had. So it was always going to be tough for any manager to walk into that job, and I look back at it and I think, well, like you've said, no manager, maybe bar Mourinho's, kind of brought this stability to the club. So being endorsed by Sir Alex Ferguson, you would have thought he should have got a lot more time there. Personally, I think he should have had at least another transfer window or two under his belt. The only player he brought in was Fellaini, wasn't it? Pretty sure. Yeah. So didn't really get a chance to put his own identity in the team.
But yeah, it was Mata as well, I think.
Oh, Mata.
But I think I think it's sort of an understandable reaction by the fans, because you probably would feel that way if you've been dominant for like 20 years. But then all of a sudden you're sort of 7th, 8th. But at the same time, I don't really agree with it.
Yeah, the fans were. I thought it was unfair because they were obviously used to the dominance, but that was the Sir Alex Ferguson dominance. Moyes was never gonna like have that same like effect straight away, and I thought it was as Ferguson picked him, but I just thought at least a full season before making any.
I'd agree. So then you moved on to Roberto Martinez as manager. He had just come off the back of success at, I'd say a success at Wigan. He got them to an FA Cup final, didn't he?
He got relegated as well.
He did get relegated that season.
So say success.
Well,
they won the FA Cup.
Well, yeah. So
it was a success.
No, I know, but I'm saying obviously they got relegated as well. So it's like, well,
mixed.
They won the FA Cup against Man City.
Oh, thanks for reminding us of that FA Cup loss. Yeah. But how would you say his time at Everton went?
Well, he did well initially. I think he took like the defensive like stability that Moyes had, and then added more sort of attacking flair. And obviously had like Lukaku, Barkley was doing well, and like Deulofeu. They were a good side. Nearly finished top 4. Ended up finishing 5th in his first season, I think. But then after that, I think as he had more influence on the side, they sort of lost that defensiveness. And I don't think he really coached defending that much, so he ended up being a bit naive, really, and it ended up struggling. But he's a good attacking coach, I think. He's still doing well. Well, he's got the Belgian job, so
yeah.
But they're a good side for that one season, and obviously Lukaku was a big help. But yeah, he sort of tailed off eventually.
I mean, I haven't really seen much of Everton apart from when they play City or they're just on. But I thought Roberto Martinez did a solid job for what they had with him.
Yeah, I think signing players like Lukaku, I think that ultimately, like you said, you nearly got top 4. I think that was them type of signings where it nearly elevated you to that next level. It was just a case of you started to get too open at the back, and that was ultimately, I think, why he had to go. You weren't solid defensively.
A lot of people, looking back, a lot of Everton fans think they were wrong to appoint a manager who got a team relegated. They think they should have better expectations than that and just appoint a better, more proven manager. See, although he did win the FA Cup, he still got them relegated and hasn't done anything in club football since. So
yeah, I think that's probably a fair enough thing for them to think. Then next you moved on to Ronald Koeman.
Yes.
So he was obviously the former manager of Southampton. I'd probably say, obviously we're going to go on to Ancelotti later, but I'd say in terms of from Moyes to Marco Silva, who is going to be coming up later as well, I'd say probably Ronald Koeman's my favourite manager that you've had, I think it's fair to say, just from the type of football he played. I've always actually quite liked him as a manager as well. I think he did a really good job at Southampton, and I think unlike maybe Martinez and fans being upset about him getting the job on the back of a relegation, I think Koeman was actually a good appointment.
Yeah, a lot of fans don't actually like Koeman because they think I think Koeman just saw Everton as a bit of a stepping stone, and a lot of the problems that are still at the club now, like a lot of the players that were brought in under his reign. And he did similar to Martinez. He did well initially, but then struggled after that. And it was also Steve Walsh, who was brought in as director of football. He was at Leicester before that, and brought in people like Kante and Mahrez when they won the league. So when he came into Everton, people thought there'd be similar sort of recruitment, but then he was just met with loads of money with the new owner, and just sort of wasted it a bit. And players like Sigurdsson was 45 million, then Keane was about 25, then Pickford 30, and then like, under Allardyce you had Walcott 25 and Tosin was like 28. So
yeah,
and
big
Schneiderlin,
money, isn't it? Going on players that you wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, and some of those players are still at the club now on big wages, and they're trying to offload them because of FFP and stuff, and they're struggling to really. So Everton fans don't really look at that period that fondly.
What do you think of so the last two managers who've gone over, Martinez and Koeman, having that almost manager bounce? Would you think it's fair to say where they've done well initially with the team, and then why do you think it has been the case of they've had that good start and then it's just completely dropped off?
I think with Martinez it was to do with his style of play more than anything, where he just didn't focus enough on defending and it was just far too open. And then with Koeman, I think since Koeman it's been a case of almost too much recruitment and like too many new players coming in, because you end up with squads of like that have been assembled by different managers, so you're having to work around that. And also his recruitment wasn't very good either. But it's difficult to say why there hasn't been that sort of long-term stability there, and they just sort of do well initially. I don't really know, but it's a shame that they don't, obviously.
So next up, you moved on to probably not your favourite manager, Big Sam Allardyce.
He's a great man. What are you on about?
He's the only England manager in history to have a 100% win rate.
Exactly.
What would you say about his time in charge as an Everton fan?
Well, he came in just after Koeman, when we were supposedly in a relegation battle. We sort of were, but then after Allardyce picked up a couple of results, we were sort of fine. And then we had a few months of just really terrible football, where we hardly had shots on target. It was just really boring, and a lot of the fans just weren't happy with it and didn't feel as though he could take the club any further. And obviously they made the decision. I think they actually did a survey before.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that.
The results were like pretty much telling the club to get rid of him, and that's what they did.
How do you feel about that? Obviously, it is your club, and I understand that, but obviously, for being a manager at a football club, that must be a bit disheartening when your employers are kind of putting a survey out to see how people feel about you. It does seem a bit of a... I don't think I've actually ever heard of anything like that.
No.
Not in terms of judging a manager in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of a weird way to go about it, but they might have been a bit mixed on whether to keep him or not, because he sort of did the job that he was initially asked to do in keeping the club up. But then the football was so bad and the results were just not great either. And there was always the feeling that he couldn't take the team on, because he's never worked at a level beyond mid-table really. He is sort of a relegation battle manager, and Everton don't really want to have that kind of manager. So I guess they weren't really sure what the fans thought and what they felt the club should do going forward.
Do you think that it was necessary though at the time that you did bring someone like him in? Was there that worry that potentially, right, we're in a bit of danger here? Or do you think maybe it was just a bit of a knee-jerk reaction and someone else could have done it?
Potentially, yeah, but it's always a bit of a risk, isn't it, when you sort of fear getting relegated? Like, you see it with clubs now. They sort of appoint sort of a young, exciting manager, and then it doesn't work, and they end up going even further down. But then you see a club like, even though Watford haven't done that well recently, they picked up a few results under Nigel Pearson, and you see it with Pulis as well a few years ago. So it's sort of the safer option, I guess. And then they might have just thought of it as a short-term option and then reassess in the summer.
It all does depend who is available at the time as well, because he might have been the best choice that was available at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
As you said, he is known for keeping the clubs up. So he did the job, but as you said, there wasn't really much else he could do.
Yeah, I think that's when they wanted Silva, and they tried to get him and then couldn't, and then his form at Watford sort of tailed off. Yeah, and then ended up getting him after Allardyce left or got sacked.
So moving on to Marco Silva, and it was obviously a bit of an interesting time because it felt as if he was almost poached a bit, wasn't he? From Watford,
Yeah.
there was a lot of speculation in the news about you wanting him, and it was quite public. Obviously, Watford, he'd done quite well there before he tailed off, and they weren't wanting to let him go. And they felt as if their form had been disrupted because of all the speculation.
They weren't very happy at all.
No, they weren't. Do you think, looking back at it now and how things have gone with Marco Silva, and obviously he's gone now, when things started to tail off, do you think maybe that isn't actually because of the speculation at the time? It's because instead of he just wasn't as good a manager as you thought, or
Probably, yeah. Well, he's done well in Europe, and it's done okay in the Premier League, like with Hull, and for a few months with Watford. But a lot of people say he's a good coach as well, but in terms of being an actual manager and in charge of a team, there was a lot of things that were very like questionable, like his game management, and like he kept going on about playing 4-3-3, but then always played 4-2-3-1, and like in the season, like a few months ago, the football was just terrible. Like they couldn't open up teams, and I think against Sheffield United they put about 42 crosses in.
I remember that game.
Lost 2-0, and Sheffield United had one shot on target and one own goal. So a lot of it was just sort of passing it sideways and then eventually trying to find the fullbacks to cross it in. And it just never really worked. Although he did okay in his first season, had sort of an okay start and then a good finish to the season, beating like Arsenal and Man United and Chelsea. But yeah, I think a lot of people looking back now aren't convinced that he was good enough, really.
Yeah.
Did you know that? So he's been at Hull, Watford, and Everton. 3 clubs in the Premier League. He's the only manager to lose by 6 goals or more, being at 3 clubs.
Well,
I did not know that until now.
Good little fact for you. Just thought I'd give you that.
That's a reason maybe for any other Premier League clubs to not going for him. So we are going to go on to Ancelotti later because I know there's quite a bit we want to speak about him. But before we get to that, it's something that I think is quite interesting with Everton because we mentioned money before, but your spending over the last 5 seasons at least has been quite significant, hasn't it? There's been a lot of investment into the team,
yes.
Not necessarily into the correct players. So I've done a bit of research for the podcast like I do. I know how much you appreciate that. And you have spent the 4th highest in the last 5 years with a spend of 535.5 million and a net spend of 275 million.
On who?
Well, that's what I was about to ask Billy. How do you feel that the club has gone about its business in the transfer market?
I think in the last summer and the summer before that, it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Because that was under a different director of football. But the ones before that, where it was under Steve Walsh, where he just wasted a lot of money really, and the recruitment was poor. Like you had that one summer where he brought in 3 number 10s who were all sort of
yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was Rooney, Sigurdsson, and
David Klaas.
that's the one, David Klaas. I always forget him, every single time.
Yeah. They were all sort of first team quality as well, because Klaassen was the Ajax captain at the time.
Yeah.
Sigurdsson was 45 million, and Rooney was still a good player. And obviously with his history at the club, there's sort of that nostalgia there as well.
Yeah.
So then, like, you ended up playing like Sigurdsson or Rooney out wide, and Klaassen just not playing.
So that was the summer after that was the same summer, sorry, that you'd sold Lukaku, was it? Was that summer? Or was it
I
the
think
summer?
so, yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost a case of, it's where I compare us to selling Suarez and how badly I think we spent that money. I think the only good player we actually bought with that money was... No, not Coutinho. Who did we buy with that money? We bought someone good with that money, but we basically blew a load of it.
How much did you sell Lukaku for?
75.
Which obviously, looking at it in like
Yeah.
nowadays isn't a great deal, but back then it was
But
still
75
good,
and then
good chunk of
45
money.
of that went on Sigurdsson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's quite a lot. Yeah.
I mean, I like Sigurdsson, but it's not
Yeah,
at the same level.
It was the same summer, I just checked.
Yeah. It was interesting at the time, obviously, because you'd spent 45 million on Sigurdsson, and I think our highest signing at that point was, I want to say 35 or something along them lines. So it was something like you'd gone from this team that we share a city with that are always that have always been seen kind of as like beneath us, and then in a footballing sense, of course, and then it suddenly out of nowhere spending this money, and I have to admit, even that's somewhere I was a bit like, oh God, right, okay, they've got some ambition behind them, and
yeah, well, it was around the same time that Farhad Moshiri came in with a lot of money, so then I guess they wanted to spend it. As you say, like Lukaku going out, and then it's a bit like swapping Lukaku for Sigurdsson and Michael Keane in terms of like the money spent.
Yeah.
And Lukaku was never properly replaced either, and a lot of the signings were on big wages as well, which obviously has an effect more in the long term. But if you look at the players who were signed around that time, like those players don't really probably aren't at the club now. Like people like Balassi, Ashley Williams, and then you got like
Ashley Williams.
Sigurdsson. Most people want him to leave, and Schneiderlin, people want him to leave.
Schneiderlin still plays football.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Michael Keane's been dropped nowadays. Then you got Tosin, who's on loan at Palace. Tosin was 28 million, brought in by Allardyce.
Wow.
So
yeah, you did have that. I feel like you had that struggle after Lukaku had gone of trying to find that striker to replace him with, because obviously he was so crucial to how you played and getting the amount of goals he did for you. I think it's only maybe now with having like Richarlison and like Dominic Calvert-Lewin's found quite a good patch of form at the minute.
yeah,
I think you're finally starting to get into that goal scoring run again.
yeah. I think Calvert-Lewin's been there for a while, but before this season he just sort of played like bit part roles, which are coming on from the bench for like four people like Tosin and Nias, who just turned out not to be good enough. But over the seasons he's developed, and particularly when Duncan Ferguson came in December, I think he probably sort of put an arm around him and told him how good he was, and he's been really good. Like he's always been like a physical presence, but never really had those sort of movements into the box and like the instincts of a striker. But he gets like a goal every other game now, so he's doing really well. I think it helps him playing with Richarlison up front, so they've got someone to play with. A lot of, like sometimes strikers need that, I think, to play two up front.
Yeah, and it's good as well because obviously Euros coming up, England, a lot of injuries at the minute, but it's been quite, I'd say, remarkable with the amount of top level English strikers that. I mean, obviously you've got your Kanes that have been around for years, and we know that calibre of player. But then you've got people like Ings is having a ridiculous season. Tammy Abraham, I know he's dropped off a little bit now and he's injured at the moment, but he was in great goal scoring form. Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So there's just been these strikers that have kind of popped up and are doing a good job. Going forward with signings, obviously there's a lot of money in the Premier League now, TV deals, things like that. But there's also talk about you getting a new stadium. Where are you with that at the minute?
Well, they submitted the planning application a few weeks ago, and the other day they released like the dates of when they're going to start the construction. So I think it should be for around the 2022 season.
Okay.
They're looking for it to be ready there, and the Bramley Moor Docks around it's a 52,000 capacity stadium. So obviously that'll help a lot with FFP, with a lot more revenue coming into the club.
And how do you feel about maybe potentially with the money going into their like transfer windows going forward? Do you think it'll have any impact on how much money you'll have to spend, or do you just think it'll be a case of the owners it'll all be okay?
I think potentially, yeah. Well, if you look at what Spurs, when they were building their new stadium, they didn't really spend much. So I don't know if that'll be like what happens with Everton. So I kind of think maybe need to sign. I think the strategy in the last two seasons has been to sign younger players who will develop in the coming years. So I think they'll probably just carry on with that. They have the transfers have been better in the last 2 years. Like a lot of the best players in the squad now are players who have been signed recently. Yeah, and a lot of them are quite young players as well.
Yeah, I'd say certainly. I mean, you look at like Digne, Gomez, just to name two at least.
Richarlison as well. And like even Mina's been really good this season. And Bernard and like Moyes Keane's come in. So yeah.
What were your thoughts on how Barcelona bid for Richarlison?
I didn't really believe it, to be honest. I don't think it was true. At the same time, I didn't think even if it was true, I wouldn't have agreed with selling him because I just didn't really see much point. Because I feel like if they wanted him, they could just bid in the summer anyway, when we'd be more prepared to sell. So he's going to leave eventually. Like he'll go. I think he'll go to a big.
If they were to,
club.
if they were to bid in the summer,
Would
would be right. Obviously, it would affect the club a lot, the team. But would you be like, you've earned it, go for it?
Oh yeah. As long as it's the right price, I think. But he can do what he wants, really. But I'd be sad to see him leave because he's a really good player and probably our best player, really. But yeah, you can't really. I don't think you can deny a player a move to like a Barcelona, especially when you bring in so much money for the club.
Yeah.
Who could then reinvest it, hopefully better than they did with Lukaku.
If they did come in for him, what price would you say they'd have to pay to get his services?
I don't know, really. I think because then it would depend on who was brought in at the same time. Like, I wouldn't want it to be like 80 million and then they spend like they buy like another 2 Sigurdssons, if you like.
Surely they can't find another 2 Sigurdssons. That must be difficult.
But yeah, a lot of people were surprised by their 85 million rumour, but I think was it 85 million?
Yeah.
Or 80?
Yeah, I think it was 80.
Yeah. But then I think he's worth a lot more than Maguire is, and he was around that price. So I don't know, maybe like 100. I don't know.
God, football, like just transfers these days, just mental, isn't it? Looking back,
I think the 100 million is justified just because his age as well, and he's broken into the Brazilian team as well. So
Yeah.
I think I think it's getting there, and I think that if he was to move, it would have to be the big move straight away, so they could affect it.
Yeah, as you say, like he's only 22 and he's becoming more and more of a big part of the Brazil squad, and I think he'll become quite a marketable player as well. So yeah, I can see him being a bit of a big deal in the coming years, and he is really good just in general. Like I think he's got out of any attacker, he's got the most tackles by about 15, and his numbers are similar to like fullbacks and holding midfielders. So he just works harder than like any player I've seen, and is really good in the air, like running with the ball, is finishing as well. He's sort of quite complete as a forward.
If you were to sell him, who would you like to see Everton bring in?
I don't know really. So at the moment we're playing 4-4-2, and he's sort of playing as a bit of a false 9, where he picks up the ball and runs at players, or he sort of holds back and goes into the box and makes late runs. I'm not sure really. It might even be Moyes Keane who comes in to replace him, and then they invest that money elsewhere, because we could do with a right winger as well, because we've got Walcott there at the moment. He's literally our only right winger really, so we will sign one, I think.
Do you think Moyes Keane going forward has shown glimpses of having that potential to potentially fill that position?
I think so, yeah. He's the trouble is he's only started about 5 or 6 games, so he hasn't really had that much time to show what he can do. And a lot of games when he's been brought on, like if you bring a striker, it tends to be when you need a goal, so your team's struggling. And a lot of the time when we're struggling, it's because our midfield's just not doing enough.
So you think he's getting like judged a bit harsher because he's coming on and maybe not having the desired effect?
So he comes on and still can't really affect the game much. Like, there was games earlier on in the season where you had Sigurdsson as the number 10 and Calvert-Lewin up front, and they didn't make a single pass between each other. So it's like
That's not what you want.
That's a great playmaking partnership, that is.
So a lot of the time he's come on and hasn't really had the opportunity to do much, but then the Newcastle game a few weeks ago, he was like man of the match and was really good. I don't think he's played since then, which is a bit strange, but he's still 19, so I think he turns 20 next month, so he's still got plenty of time.
He has the potential. I think he'll need the support not only from the manager but the players, and I think you need to replace Sigurdsson to get the most out of.
Yeah, that's been one of the big problems this season, the midfield, 'cause, especially with Because last season you had Idrissa Gueye, sort of papering over a lot of the cracks, I think, because he was so good at what he did. But and Gabamin was brought in as his replacement and got injured, I think, just after the second game of the season.
He's still not back yet, is he?
No.
He's been missing since August, yeah. Gomez broke his leg and was back before him.
Yeah. I think he might have, like, tore the quadricep muscle off the bone or something.
Oh.
Yeah,
I think he might have had 2 lots of surgery or something.
All right.
But he's not like an injury prone player. Like
No.
Before at Mainz, he didn't really have any long term injuries like that. But as I say, he was brought in to replace Gay. He hasn't played. So there's a big problem there. And then Gomez, who's the best midfielder, broke his ankle. He hasn't been playing since November. So then you've had to fill in those positions with people who aren't good enough, like Sigurdsson and Schneidel, and even Delph hasn't really done that well. So, and Tom Davis has struggled at times. A lot of them have been injured as well.
Yeah. Is there a date that they've set where Gabamin might return, or?
No. I'm not sure. There was an update like a few weeks ago basically saying that he's going to be out for another lot of weeks. So, but I've sort of forgotten about him for this season because it's not really. You just got to look forward to next season with him. But with Gomez, they're trying to get him back for the Arsenal game.
All right.
Which would have been before this podcast went out.
Yeah, just not to confuse anyone. Wade isn't here as of next week that we are recording
when this goes up.
Yeah, so we're recording back-to-back episodes, and this is the episode that's up on the Friday. Wade isn't here. That has not helped anyone. I've just confused you even more. But
today is, when this goes up, is the 28th, but we're actually recording on the 21st.
Yeah.
Of February.
That was a lot clearer.
So we'll know if Gomez will have made a return by then. He played like a behind closed doors game the other day.
I saw photos of videos of him back in training and like staying out like an hour after everyone else to get back. So
yeah,
and he looked like he was very close to being back on the pitch.
Yeah, well, he's been in and around training for a while now. So although you don't want to rush him back, at the same time, all of a sudden we're in a bit of a Champions League race with the FFP stuff with City. Obviously, 5th place might get Champions League.
Yeah.
So and we're not far off. We're not far off that. So we need our best players to be there, and he's obviously one of them. So we kind of want him. You don't want to rush him back, but I want him back as soon as possible at the same time.
I guess looking at him as well as Digne, when you got like them in, it again showed me almost the ambition that the club has.
Yeah.
To be able to like sign these players from Barcelona, because obviously Gomez came on loan initially, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I thought after the loan was up, I thought, well, Barca are going to want an absolute fortune for him now because of how well he's done for you. And for you to get him, was he 35?
Oh, he's only 22.
Oh, wow. Right, okay.
Where's 35 come from?
It's just a great number. That's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
the new director of football, Marcel Brands, he worked a lot in Holland and he's got a lot of good connections and stuff. And I think he might sort of know people at Barcelona because he's already signed 3 players from there. So as I say, his business compared to Steve Walsh's has been like considerably better.
Yeah.
Like if you look at Gomez,
You'll Gomez for half the price of Sigurdsson.
yeah, and cheaper than Michael Keane, and like Digne was 18 million.
That's I did not.
That's
Good.
really
Even
good.
Moyes Keane, sort of one of the best prospects in the world, really. Like
40 million for Gomez and Digne and 45 for Sigurdsson.
Moyes Keane was like 25. Like a few weeks before we signed him, I was thinking about 40 or something, and then I didn't really think it would happen, and then it happened, and it was a lot cheaper than I thought. So yeah, he's done well, Brands, and I think he's got a bit of a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
They've just been a lot smarter, like the transfers. It's just a lot better.
He seemed to have definitely getting through the bad times that he had with the people in charge and Koeman and stuff, and then now Lady and you've brought in Ancelotti, and obviously everyone knows who Ancelotti is.
Yeah.
Won a lot.
Yeah.
Across his life. Yeah, I did not see that coming.
I didn't.
No, I didn't really either, to be honest. But at the time, it was a lot of rumours were suggesting it was going to be Moyes returning,
'Cause you
even
were-
like Mark Hughes was rumoured once.
I remember when we were in the house and
Yeah.
you mentioned that to me, and your face wasn't very pleased.
No. There wasn't really that many options apart from like Moyes. And then Ancelotti sort of came out of nowhere and got the
'Cause
job.
you were like, was only like 2 or 4 points off the relegation, like 18th.
Yeah. Well, at one
And
point
then-
we were in the
yeah.
relegation zone in December.
And then he came in and yeah, you're like almost in the Champions League spot now, and
Yeah.
you've got 27 points since Christmas.
Yeah. I think he's got like 17 points out of
yeah.
a possible 24,
Yeah.
I think, which is pretty good, obviously. And we were linked with Arteta a lot of the time.
Yeah, I thought if he was going to leave City,
Yeah.
it would be back to Everton, but obviously
Yeah.
he's at Arsenal.
Yeah, I genuinely thought he was going to be
And then
the one to like come in.
because Pellegrini was falling apart at West Ham, and then Moyes was floating around for everyone, and I was just like, maybe a full circle and you'll get Moyes back.
Yeah. But I think as well, like, it's a much different appointment to like the previous ones where we've gone for sort of younger, more inexperienced managers, people like Martinez and Koeman and Silva, where are sort of unproven, so you're not sure how good they're going to be. So with Ancelotti, he's made a big impact straight away.
Yeah,
And, like,
definitely.
From a player's point of view, you're going to be sort of motivated to want to play under him, and you can't really like question what he says because he's won 3 Champions Leagues and more successful than like any other manager. So, yeah.
So, I mean, it's February, getting towards the end of this season. Come the summer, how big of a reshuffle do you think Ancelotti will make?
I don't think. I think if you'd asked me that like a few months ago or when he first joined, I probably would have said quite a lot. But then a lot of players have improved, and like I would have said we needed a centre back, but Mason Holgate's been one of our best players recently, and Yerry Mina also. So I'm not really that fussed about that anymore. I think we need a right winger. So as I say, we've only got one, and that's Walcott.
That's all you need.
Yeah. Then Sidibe's like backup right winger as well. So I think maybe a right winger and then just a few sort of younger players. They need to sort out the right back position as well, because I'm not quite sure what they'll do there. So you've got Sidibe, who's good but it's quite poor defensively, and Coleman's just sort of lost it a bit. And then Kenny's on loan at Schalke and doing quite well, but maybe not quite at the level we want. So, and also like the goalkeeper position. I know you wanted to get onto this.
Yeah.
There's some fans who want that addressed, who just aren't confident in Pickford anymore. So
Yes. I mean,
What are your opinions on Pickford? Because I know this is something me and you have a chat about when we watch an Everton game. Do you still think he warrants to still be England's #1 goalkeeper?
I do at the moment, yeah, because I think. I just don't think he's done bad enough to lose that position, to be honest. And like,
it might not necessarily be him doing bad enough. I just think other keepers have done better. Like Dean Henderson.
yeah, I think Dean Henderson's had a better season,
Yeah.
but then I just don't think the difference in quality has been enough to just throw him in at the deep end at the Euros, when like Pickford's having the season Dean Henderson had a few years ago when he was at Sunderland. He was their best player, moved to Everton, won all the best player awards in his first season at Everton, played in the World Cup, was one of the best keepers in the World Cup, and then had last season where he did okay, wasn't great, and then this season where he's made too many mistakes, I think. But I think part of it is he hasn't improved at the level that he perhaps should have done.
Yeah.
And the expectations have changed, because a few years ago he was like a young keeper and he was making mistakes and people thought it was fine because he's young and he's improving, but he's still making those same mistakes, and a lot of people have sort of lost patience with that.
We're just going to take a quick break there. We'll be back in a minute.
And we're back after that little interruption. So we're talking about Pickford and his potential drop of form. But I mean, Billy, you were saying that you don't think it's been as bad as others are saying.
No, I think obviously a lot of other fans just sort of watch the Everton highlights and then if he does make a mistake every few weeks, I think it probably looks a lot worse than it is. Obviously, it isn't ideal. I just don't think it's been bad enough to. I think Dean Henderson has had a better season, but I'd still go with Pickford at the Euros. Also, I think his distribution is still very good, and a big part of how England play. Like in the Nations League against Spain, I think Spain were pressing and England were just passing it backwards, and then Pickford just pinged it long, and then they scored straight from that. And I think that's a good example.
So you'd almost argue, even though he's had a bit of a poor season by some people's standards, that the experience he's had so far with England is still enough that he should be keeping that number one spot.
Yeah, I think I think it'd almost be a bit harsh on Dean Henderson to expect him to come in and do as well as Pickford did, like at the World Cup. Do you know what I mean? And he still made mistakes this season, Henderson. I remember against Liverpool.
Yeah.
And realistically, it can only be Henderson. Like I wouldn't go with Pope over Pickford.
No, I think it would be Henderson.
Yeah. But from an Everton perspective, a lot of fans have sort of lost confidence in him, and I think he sort of made a rod for his own back, where they're sort of analysing everything he does now, and like even shots that are like right in the corner, they're saying, "Oh, I should have got to that. A top keeper would have saved that." And it's like, he isn't a top keeper. Do you know what I mean? He's not a world class goalkeeper, so you can't really have those expectations. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, at the end of the day, in goalkeeping terms at least, he's still relatively young, isn't he?
He's 25.
Exactly. So he's still got a good 10, if not longer, years ahead of him.
Yeah.
And
I think there's just a few of those little mistakes that like he has like rash decisions to. Like I'm thinking back to the Merseyside derby when the balls had just floated up, and if he had potentially composed himself slightly, he could have caught it, but then he fumbles around with it, and then Origi has the tap in.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time he is like at Toffee TV. We spoke to Neville Southall, who's like Everton's best ever keeper, one of the best keepers ever, really. And he was talking about Pickford, saying how he thinks he's quite reactionary, not proactive, where he's always, well, as you say, he's reacting to things rather than being well prepared for them. And you see that quite a lot when people have shots. He's sort of just not well prepared enough. And there is things like when he comes for crosses, I'm just not sure if he's physically big enough to ever be good at that. You know what I mean? But there are keepers like who are a similar size who've done really well. So, and he is only 25, so I don't think he will have peaked at like 24. So because that would be just really weird. So I do think he'll improve. It's just whether Everton give him the time to do that at Everton or whether they look elsewhere.
I mean, you look at goalkeepers. I mean, you'd probably argue David De Gea has been one of the. Well, he was the best in the world at one point. He was the best in the world at one point.
Man United, trash.
We need subscribers, Wade. Shut up.
Trash.
He was the best in the world at one point, and I think it's fair to say since the World Cup, he has, by his standards, had a bit of a drop off in form. I know he's had the good game here and there. I think I remember last season they played against Tottenham, and he was absolutely ridiculous in that game. But at least for his standards, he hasn't been, playing at his best. But again, that's like he's been at the top and had that little drop off in form, and it's not to say that he'll never get there again. And obviously, he's older than Pickford, so I think it is a bit unfair, if you will, for Pickford to be getting so much stick. And I think it's again that case of he's English. And that makes you under the microscope so much more, especially being England's number one. Yeah. With all this expectation on you for not only your fans of your club, but also the entire nation as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't like his personality as well, because he is quite sort of confident, and like you see him at the darts, like down in pints and standing on tables and stuff.
Yeah, I think he's one of them where if he plays for your team, you probably love him. Yeah. Whereas I think he's similar to, like, I'd say my example would be Andy Robertson. I absolutely love him. Obviously, he's been getting a bit of stick recently for being, overly confident by some fans on Twitter and things like that of rival clubs. But yeah, I think he will still be England's number one for this summer to come.
Yeah, I think he will be. whether he should be, as like a lot of people don't think he should, but I just think he will be. And a lot of the problems with him are sort of psychological, where it's like in some of the games, they're big games from like Liverpool games and then Newcastle. It's obviously from Sunderland to him, that's a big game.
Yeah.
He sort of loses his head a lot and ends up making more mistakes than he usually would. But like technically, he's very good and he's a good shot stopper. But and his kicking as well. But it's just his decision making and concentration as well.
Yeah, again, I still think there is time for that to come around with maturity,
definitely.
especially in goalkeepers with how difficult a position it can be to. Well, that's why you see a lot of the goalkeepers in the prime are of that age of 30s, mid-30s, late 30s even. So.
Well, I mean, look at Manuel Neuer. He's slightly, but he did break his hand. But he's only slightly fallen off, and he's a lot older than Pickford. So I think if the right goalkeeping coach could be brought in as well by Ancelotti, which I don't know his goalkeeping.
Well, I think they've kept the same one. I don't think he's brought a new one in yet. So
the help around Pickford. I think if he gets that, like just being prepared a bit more rather than just reacting. Then
I think it'd help to have a better number two, because
who's your number two?
Well, it was supposed to be Lursel, who was brought in the summer from Huddersfield, and everyone was sort of hoping that he'd like push Pickford to sort of keep on his toes and not make the silly mistakes. But then all of a sudden, Lursel was like rotating with Stecklenburg for like the number 2 spot on the bench, and Everton fans called Stecklenburg the hologram because he's so bad. We'll just go through it. And now,
That's just not a nickname you want, is it, as a goalkeeper?
And Lursel's now gone on loan back to Huddersfield.
Oh, brilliant!
So it's just Stecklenburg again. So Pickford's not going to be dropped.
No.
Seems a bit strange, doesn't it, to be rotating your number 2 on the bench?
Yeah.
There wasn't even any reports of injuries either. I don't know why they did that.
Right. Was that under Marco Silva that was happening?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the time under like Ferguson and now Ancelotti as well.
Right.
Maybe all 3. I don't know.
Okay. Going back to Ancelotti then, what would you say your expectations going forward are with him in charge now?
In terms of this season, I think we will finish in a place that qualifies for some sort of European football.
Right.
I don't know where that'll be, but obviously like 5th place might be Champions League.
Yeah.
And then
Where are you currently?
I think we're like 8th at the moment, or 9th. But it's very close.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if
Check now actually.
Because if 5th gets the Champions League, then 8th would get the
Europa League, yeah.
Yeah.
And then but I think we'd finish around there anywhere, like 7th. If you look at the table, Chelsea are 4th with 41, and we're 9th with 36. It's only 5 points off with 12 games left.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is all to play for still, really, isn't
and
it?
I think since Ancelotti took over, he's got more points than anyone else. So if you look at going forward, if that form continues. Oh, apart from Liverpool.
Apart from us, of course.
Yeah.
You know.
You don't count this season.
No.
Mate, we're running away, don't you worry, that's fine.
But then, like 3 points off 6th as well. And some of those teams above us have got European football.
Yeah, so you think that'll help as well, because obviously you're out of the FA Cup now as well. You're welcome.
Yes.
So you think it'll definitely be a help for you coming into the running, other teams around you, like you said, European football, FA Cup, other competitions to play in. Your just sole focus is where you're going to finish in the league.
It'll pretty much just be one game a week, whereas like if you look at like Wolves earlier on in the season when they didn't win for ages because they were playing in the Europa League almost every week, and then obviously United and like Arsenal as well and Spurs, whereas we've just got it's just us and Sheffield United really. So I'm quite comfortable we'll finish probably in the Europa League. I think a Europa League qualification position.
And I guess looking maybe where you were a few months ago, that would actually be a really good achievement.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, from relegation to Europa League.
Even then, it was quite close. Like in terms of points, throughout the season, the table's been really close. Like you win a couple of games, and then your position changes dramatically. But I don't think anyone would have expected us to finish where I think we will, like in sort of mid-December or whatever.
So what about in the next few seasons? Where would you like? Obviously, you'd like to be as high as you can, but where realistically do you think you can upset that established top six? I know obviously at the minute Leicester have sneaked in there. Sheffield are doing a job this season. Obviously, we spoke about this last week. We think there is going to be a massive summer of spending, just purely because of how some of the so-called big six have struggled this season. So we think there'll be a lot of spending going on, a lot of new players brought in for big money. Yeah. Where do you think realistically you can start to place yourself, if you will?
I think the first thing is to have just a bit more consistency. Like I was saying before, like we had under Moyes and haven't had since then. Just have another good whole season under Ancelotti, where we finish in a like similar sort of position, if not, well, hopefully better. In terms of the big six, I think a lot of them have got a lot of work to do as well. Like they're not necessarily going to finish in the top six either. Yeah. Like you look at sort of Arteta at Arsenal, that seems like a bit of a long-term project. And obviously Solskjaer at United, that's going to take a lot of time before they're at the level that like Liverpool are this season and City were last season, or even City are now. So I don't think it'd be that hard to finish in the top six next season, to be honest, if we're at the level we are now.
Okay. Just got a few more questions to finish off with. Everton best 11 of the last decade. I know you said this is something that you'd spoken about on Toffee TV recently. So who would you go for?
I'd go with Tim Howard in goal. You can only really beat him or Pickford. And I think Pickford's only had like one exceptional season. So I'd go with Tim Howard in goal. And then I'd go with Coleman at right back. I think that's sort of a given.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty obvious one, wasn't it? Absolute bargain when you got him as well. For
it was 60 grand.
Jeez.
I mean, you look at that in like today's football, it's like, that is ridiculous. I mean, I look at when we got Robertson for 8 million and think, well, that still is a bargain, but 60 grand is just, that's something else, isn't it?
And I'd go with Baines at left back. I think that's sort of a given as well.
Yeah, pretty obvious.
Yeah, I think they've been quite underrated, like throughout the last decade as well. Not by Everton fans, but And then I go with Jagielka.
Again, a given.
Yeah. A lot of them are quite obvious. And then it has to be either Distan or Stones.
I know how much you love John Stones.
I might just go with Stones. I feel like Distan probably deserves it, but I just really like John Stones. So.
I've never heard someone show so much love and affection for a player who no longer plays for their team. It's brilliant. What formation are you going for?
I haven't really thought my team yet, to be honest. So,
sorry, I've just kind of thrown this on you, haven't I?
Probably just 4-3-3.
4-3-3. Okay.
It's probably going to be a bit weird though.
That's fine. We accept weird round here, don't we?
Yeah, I mean we do have Greg, so.
Thank you, Wade.
Bit worried about missing people out, you know.
You're gonna have angry Everton fans in the comment section, like, how did you forget about him?
Well, actually, first, it would be a right wing.
Theo Walcott.
I'm not quite sure, you know.
Who's going right wing if you're playing 4-3-3?
Theo.
That's a great question.
Or are you just going to put... Is Richarlison
I think
going to
Lukaku has to be up front.
Yeah.
I'll get that out of the way.
We've currently got a 4-1 formation.
Yeah. And then put Idrissa Gueye in midfield. And Barry as well.
Gareth Barry.
Barry.
Barry was really good.
I rate that.
You got one more central mid.
Big Baz.
Probably Fellaini in centre midfield as well.
I mean, I can see why, but
people select Fellaini off. But
I can see why, but
I have to say he's up there with, not even because he played for Everton and United, but he's probably up there with players I just purely dislike the most, just because of how they play. I, for the life of me, do not understand how he didn't get more like bookings, or for the amount of times he jump up and elbow your player in the face, and you're just like, how is he getting away with this? But it was a very happy day when he went to China. That's all I'm going to say.
I think the two odd positions left.
Yeah, I I was thinking of playing like,
You can change formation.
yeah.
Go for it.
So even though, I'm not quite sure. I haven't really had that many good wingers, so it's difficult.
You could just do central players in behind. You could get like a
Sigurdsson.
duo of Klaassen and Sigurdsson.
Does Rooney not make the team?
No,
No.
not based off.
Oh yeah, too fair,
No.
not based off his.
I'd probably go Barkley in there,
Yeah.
Again, I think that's fair.
and then
Attacking mid Barkley and then.
maybe another striker for like a narrow 4-1-2-1-2.
Would you say Richarlison has done enough maybe to warrant that spot?
I'm thinking maybe Richarlison, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be.
So, Howard, Coleman, Jagielka, Stones, Baines, Gay, Fellaini, Barry, Barkley, Lukaku, and Richarlison.
Yeah, it's quite a narrow team, but then you got the width with Coleman and Baines.
Yeah.
Who will-
I mean, it was either that or probably having to put Walcott on
Yeah.
the wing.
I think you've made a terrible choice there.
Who out of the managers as the last decade, who would you have as your manager of that team? Who would you want to be managing?
Probably still Moyes, to be honest.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah. I was
Yeah.
an honourable mention. Well, not really, but I was thinking about putting Pienaar in because him and Baines work so well together. And
Yeah.
Pienaar was just really good, but then I think he was better before 2010.
Ah, fair enough.
So I'm quite happy with that. Hopefully, I haven't forgotten anyone.
Well, we'll take a photo of that anyway, and we'll put it up on our socials so you can see that as well. 3 questions to finish off with. Who is your favourite football player of all time?
Of all time.
Of all time. I know I'm throwing the big questions at you.
Wow.
This is what I didn't want you to see before I came in here because I just want it to be purely off the cuff. Throw it at us.
I do really like Tim Cahill. Would he be the one though?
That's
I
the
do
question.
I've always liked John Stones as well, even now. Then you got like Baines and Coleman, and even Pienaar. I'd probably just go with Tim Cahill though.
Tim Cahill.
He's quite an iconic Everton player, I think.
Fair enough. If you could sign one player, no matter who it is, who would you want and why?
It's like realistically.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, you can't be like you want to have Messi. At
yeah.
left.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Realistically.
I was going to say Messi. But,
Okay.
I think it'd probably have to be a right winger. And
Messi.
yeah,
It's gonna happen.
we've been linked with Cengiz Under from Roma.
Right. Okay.
I think that'd be like 35 million. He's like a young, exciting player.
Mm.
So in terms of being very realistic.
You think? Yeah. Someone like
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, and I think someone like him will come in the summer as well.
Fair enough. And then final question: if there was one player you would like to be best mates with most, who would it be and why?
I think it'd be Tom Davis.
Tom Davis?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Just for a bit of context, I've seen Billy's phone screensaver and it is the lovely photo of Tom Davis and Dominic Calvert-Lewin at the New York Fashion Week. They look very interesting. I'm sure you've all seen it.
Yeah.
Tom
I think-
Davis.
Yeah, he just seems like quite different to a lot of footballers, and like
It's one way. Yeah.
I follow his social media and we listen to like similar music as well, and he just seems like a really nice guy, and obviously mates with Calvert-Lewin as well.
Mm.
He's just a lot different to most footballers, I think. He just seems cool.
So, as we do every week, we're the games. Obviously, the Premier League's still going on. Score
Yes.
predictions. 2 weeks ago, Greg had a bit of a shocker.
Yes.
Bit of a shocker.
It was a bad start.
Yeah.
It was like Everton this season. They had a terrible start. I'm gonna bring myself back up.
Did you not get any right?
I didn't get any bang on.
No, any bang on. He got. So we were doing. If you got it exactly right, you get 2 points, and if you're like the closest out of the scores out of us, then you get 1 point.
Oh,
Yes, out of all the games that were played, Greg got 1 point.
that's not a lot, is it?
Round of applause, please.
No,
Okay.
you get no clap. And Billy, as you are the guest, you can go first. So, Norwich, Leicester.
Am I doing all my games first, or like just
Yeah,
the
we'll
one?
just go through all of them.
Fine. Norwich, Leicester. I think 3-1 to Leicester. Do I have to explain
No,
as well? On
no, you don't.
No.
Unless you want to. But I mean,
I think Norwich.
it's third against bottom. So
Yeah. Is that
next,
Brighton against Palace?
yeah,
Big
the best derby in the world.
God, here we go.
The best, apart from Dale Stevens, but yeah, Brighton Palace.
I think they're both a similar level. Palace maybe a bit better, but Brighton at home. I think 2-2.
Oh,
Stevens to get a brace.
Bournemouth against Chelsea.
Bournemouth Chelsea.
Oof.
This fixture in recent years has been
Tasty, hasn't it?
yeah. I mean, side of Bournemouth have either been smashed or
Yeah.
I feel like there'd be quite a lot of goals in this. You know, I'm thinking 3-2 to Chelsea.
I rate that.
very nice.
I think Chelsea are a bit better away from home. And
Yeah,
Bournemouth are much better at home. Both quite open sides.
Aston Villa, Sheffield United.
Oh, I think maybe like 1-0 Sheffield United.
Close. Will it be a close 1-0 or just?
Yeah, I just feel a bit bad because I've gone for quite a lot of goals for the other one. So I just wanna go-
He's reining it in.
yeah, and Sheffield United are quite solid. So
Newcastle Burnley.
Again, not very good attacking sides, are they? I'm not thinking of many goals.
You'll be watching it. Don't tell me you won't.
I might even go 0-0.
Oh, it's going to be a stinker.
Absolute
Oh,
stinker.
Jesus. Is that our first 0-0 prediction?
That is the first 0-0 prediction.
Some games are 0-0. So West. Oh, I don't know. West Ham against Southampton. Ooh, I think Moyes will bounce back
He's backing his old man.
and 1-1.
That's the strangest bounce back I've ever heard, but
Bounce back.
he's going to bounce back with a point.
You'll probably predict
That's
that.
going to be like me.
Right. Watford, Liverpool.
5-0 Watford.
Wow.
No, I think
Wow.
I think 2-0 Liverpool. I
Yeah.
think Watford are quite a bit better under Pearson, I think. Everton, Man United. I think we'll beat them.
You think you'll beat them?
Yeah,
Right, okay.
especially at home. I think.
So Everton, Man United. What do you think?
I think we'll beat them. We beat them last season quite comfortably at home, so I think we'll beat them 3-1.
That's a big prediction, that is.
Yeah.
Right. Man City, Arsenal.
Arteta returns.
Well, Man City smashed them earlier on in the season. Obviously,
Yeah, we did.
Arteta, you'd think he'd know sort of how to play against City, having been coached there. But I still think City will smash them. Probably 3-0.
I like the sound of that.
I don't.
'Cause even if he's got a game plan, like if De Bruyne plays like he did in the last game, like not much you can do. And then Spurs against Wolves.
That'd be an interesting game.
Yeah, I think maybe 2-2.
Right.
Right.
Do you want to go first or should I?
I'll go first. I'll run through mine very quickly.
Okay.
Norwich Leicester, 2-0 Leicester. 1-1 Brighton Palace. 2-0 Chelsea Bournemouth to Chelsea. 2-1 Sheffield United.
Against.
Against Aston Villa.
Thank you.
Right? We're reading it the same order as we did Billy. Right.
Explain that this is on the board because the audience listeners, this isn't going to come right.
Jack, you're not meant to exist to our audience
Jack,
listeners.
shut up.
He's not doing it right.
You've just got a pen and that's your job.
Jack,
Yeah.
shut up. Burnley against Newcastle 1-0 to Burnley. I think Newcastle will probably score an own goal.
I can't wait to watch that. Everyone's round at mine for that one, boys.
Southampton, West Ham, 2-0 Southampton, Danny Ings. Probably like 4-0 Liverpool. Yeah, I've got a 2-1 Everton.
Yeah.
I'll say 3-0 Man City, Arsenal to City. And then Tottenham Wolves. 2-1 Tottenham.
Right, are you ready for the predicting expert? Here he comes. So Norwich Leicester, I'm going to go 2-1 Leicester. Brighton Palace, I'm going to go 1-0 Brighton. Dale Stevens, bringing home them 3 points. Bournemouth Chelsea, I am going to go with also a high scoring game. I think it'll be 3-1 Chelsea. Then Aston Villa Sheffield United, I think will be 1-1. Newcastle Burnley, oh God. I'm going to agree with Billy.
It's the game of this game week.
I'm going to agree with Billy that it will be a drab 0-0, but still tune in. West Ham Southampton, oh God. I'm going to go 1-0 again with for Southampton. Watford Liverpool. I'm going to go 1-0 Liverpool. I think, again, we've had a lot of them games where it's just by the one goal. I'm going to go with it. Then after that, we've got Everton Man United. Oh, do I go with an Everton win and follow the trend? No, I don't. I'm going to say 1-1. 1-1.
I mean, none of us have said United are going to...
Well, yeah, I don't want to go too far to the other side, but, you know. Man City Arsenal, I'm going to say... I think 3-1 City. I think Arsenal will get a goal, but again, I still think City will have too much for them. And then Tottenham Wolves. I actually think Wolves will get a win here. Ooh. I think it'd be 2-1 Wolves.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Portuguese manager against Portuguese manager.
That would help my fantasy football a lot if Wolves did get it.
It would help me getting more than 1 point as well if I did get it.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. I mean, listeners have now heard Jack, so...
they know he exists.
Yeah. And Jack writes the scores on the board for us.
That's all he does. We don't pay him, but...
Also doesn't come last in predictions.
Yes, he 2 weeks ago did beat Greg, but yeah, Jack will eventually feature on the podcast when we get,
if we haven't tagged him by then,
round to talking about, unfortunately, Man United. But there is a lot of stuff to say on them.
There is. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in anyway. That has been our... Yeah, thank you, Billy, very much for coming on. That has been our in-depth look at Everton Football Club. Yes. We hope you enjoyed. We'll be doing another in-depth look at another team soon. And from myself and Wade, goodbye.
See ya.